Hello, and welcome to Dining with Death. This episode is on my playlist, Dining with the Deceased, where we visit locations that are supposedly haunted. Today, I'm coming to you from Long Beach, California, standing outside one of the most haunted locations, supposedly, in the world, the Queen Mary. We're gonna take you on board the ship, we're gonna look around, we're gonna hopefully see a ghost. It's never happened to me yet, and of course, we're gonna eat here. Before we begin, please hit the like button if you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and you can always join my Patreon. We have a big goal there, and I will talk about that at the end of the video. I'm Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Welcome to one of the most magnificent and historical places I have ever been. A place that is also said to be one of the most haunted locations in all the world. This is the Queen Mary, and she is incredible. The RMS Queen Mary, known then as Hull Number 534, began construction in December of 1930 in Scotland. Work was halted a year later because of the Great Depression until a loan from the British government was granted. The intention for this ship was to become part of a duo of ships that would provide a 2-ship weekly service from England to New York City. The ship cost about £3.5 million sterling, which was equivalent to $7.5 million back then, and would now be $382,800,000. The ship was named after Mary of Teck, who was the queen from May 1910 to 1936, and also the wife of King George V. The new liner was launched in 1934 and sailed on her maiden voyage on May 27, 1936, traveling to Southampton. She then sailed to New York City for the first time, arriving on June 1st. The ship was the height of luxury for its travelers, especially those traveling in first class. It featured 2 indoor swimming pools, music studios, lecture halls, beauty salons, libraries, and telephone connectivity to anywhere in the world, which was very high-tech for the time. The ship also had 3 nurseries for little ones, 1 for each class. Your experience on the Queen Mary was determined by what you could afford to pay. Third class was quite affordable, but the experience was not nearly as grand as that of the first class travelers. The rooms in third class were tiny but comfortable. They had a sink and a built-in wardrobe, but no portal, so they were quite claustrophobic. This is the entrance to the third class deck of the ship, so as you can see, it was still nice. It was still very luxurious. Second-class cabins, or staterooms as they're called, were much bigger with plenty of room to move around, and most importantly, 2 small portals for some natural light. The second-class dining room was very posh, as you can see, and the lounge was the same. In fact, we read a plaque on the ship that said the second-class lounge was the most popular place on the ship because the first-class lounge was too stuffy. The first-class travelers would come down to the second-class lounge to party because it was much more fun. Let's be honest, the 1% doesn't know how to get down. But the first-class suites were quite magnificent. They were multi-room units with a living room, a sitting room, a separate bedroom, and a private bathroom. They were very posh and reserved only for the wealthy that could afford to pay the price. The price. The rabbit holes I went down. I was expecting to just pull up a list of the prices then compared to the prices now. Believe it or not, I couldn't find a list of designated prices for the 1940s, and there is a lot of disagreement on what the cost was. It appears it was about $124 one way, which is about $1,240 today. Now, that was not for first class. First class was apparently thousands, which would be tens of thousands today. When World War II broke out, the life of the Queen Mary changed drastically. She sat idle for some time, and then she left for Sydney, Australia, where she was converted into a troop ship to carry Australian and New Zealand soldiers to the United Kingdom. Her iconic colors, the black, red, and white stripes, were painted entirely gray to make the ship harder to see in the fog. With the new camouflage and the incredible speed the ship was capable of, she became known as the Grey Ghost. The posh furniture in the ship was replaced with rows and rows of wooden bunks for the soldiers to sleep in, and the luxury dining halls became mess halls. 6 miles of carpeting was removed and stored during the war. All of the china, crystal, and silverware was boxed up, and throughout the war, the Queen Mary carried 15,000 men on each voyage, traveling without a convoy or an escort. The ship's ability to zigzag and travel at high speed made her nearly impossible for U-boats to catch her. At the end of the war, the Queen Mary took a shipload of war brides to Canada to meet their returning husbands, and then she was retired for luxury travel. In 1958, the first transatlantic flights by jet would mark the beginning of the end for these grand luxury ships, which at their time were the only means of traveling across the ocean. By 1965, the Cunard fleet of ships, of which the Queen Mary was a part, was operating at a loss. The majority of the fleet was mortgaged, and Cunard announced the Queen Mary would be sold off. Japanese scrap metal merchants bid on the boat, but thankfully, Long Beach, California outbid them, and the Queen Mary was saved. Can you believe that? It makes me sick to think this ship could have been torn apart and sold off for scrap metal, but many others were. The Queen Mary retired from service in September of 1967. She docked here in Long Beach for the last time and was turned into a floating hotel. The boiler rooms were dismantled, the engine room was removed, and both turbo generators were taken apart. The ship's hull was filled with mud from the bottom of the ocean in Long Beach in order to keep the ship's center of gravity and draft at the correct levels. And that was the end of the Queen Mary's days at sea. Fortunately for people like us, it was the beginning of a new era where tourists can now see this magnificent wonder for as little as $10. Our tour began in the Grand Salon. When you first enter, you walk into this beautiful reception area. The woodwork inside this ship is something to behold. I think of all the hands that shaped and molded this interior almost 100 years ago, and I think of all the people who have passed through it over the decades. In the corner sits a stunning grand piano that was played by Liberace, among others, and they have a fabulous display, one of the posters from A Night with Liberace, April 6, 1958. Isn't this amazing? Over in the corner sits a cozy little bar. Can't you just picture people sitting here at the bar, smoking cigarettes and having a cocktail? I swear for a moment here, I could almost smell the cigarette smoke. Of course, back then it was everywhere. We walked up the stairs, which are flanked by these incredible Art Deco glass etchings. I was absolutely fascinated by these. They're so very, very of the time period, kind of futuristic, but in the Art Deco style that was so popular. The stairs lead to one of the many very long and very thin hallways lined with guest cabins. As long as these aisles look here on film, they're longer in person. They go on and on and on. We came upon a service crew, and they were kind enough to let us film inside one of the rooms. This would have been a second-class cabin when the ship was in service. It's large enough for a queen bed, and behind the headboard wall is a private bath. The windows are not what they would have been back then. These would have been smaller portholes. The windows are a great improvement, but of course not seaworthy. On this main deck level sits the second-class lounge. They were setting up for a conference in there, but I stuck my head in. Can't you almost see the full room of people in formal wear from the 40s and 50s, having drinks and listening to a band? I love it so much. We walked out onto the main deck of the ship. You get a better feel for how high up you actually are out here. Obviously, you walk up a plank to get on the ship, but then as we explored, we climbed higher and higher. I like to think about the people who sat on deck chairs enjoying the ocean as they traveled, but also of the soldiers who came up here to get some sun or fresh air as they headed into a terrifying next stop, into war and into battle. Even outside, you can feel the history here. There's almost a reverent feeling, knowing you're standing where so many others made such an important journey to either their home in the New World or perhaps their last journey to die as a casualty of war. From up here, you also get a better concept of how massive the ship is. Inside, it's easy to forget the size of this vessel, but from up here, you really feel it. That captain's view up there must be amazing, don't you think? I'm not great at gauging distance and size references. I do not have a math brain, but that massive cruise ship doesn't look much bigger than the Queen Mary, although I'm sure it is. They've dotted the outdoor walkways with old photos of celebrities on the ship, so very many famous and infamous people voyaged on the Queen Mary, and I love the fact that she hasn't really changed much since they did. I did notice that the fabulous ice cream parlor that was here at our last visit is gone. COVID probably had something to do with that, but the wedding chapels seem to be a big business. There's even a store dedicated to weddings, and apparently this is a very popular place to get married. I can definitely see why. Our next stop was the Art Deco bar. This place was maybe my favorite spot on the ship. It's incredible, and so are the drinks. I could kind of just take over a corner here in this spot and work from here every day and be perfectly happy. The view of Long Beach from the massive windows is stunning, and the bar itself, it's like stepping back in time. The Art Deco design, everything's round and sweeping, and there's dual and triple lines all over everything. I'm just obsessed with this kind of stuff. Just think of all the people that have sat at that bar, over the last almost 100 years. It's almost 100 years now. Oh my goodness. It'll be, I think it was 36 or 37 they commissioned this. So we'll be old when it's 100 years old.
It's only 10 years, dude.
Like I said, we'll be old. Of course, I had to get a Prohibition era cocktail. Usually I order an aviation, but a lot of places can't make that because it has creme de violet, which nobody carries. So I got the bee's knees, which is gin, honey syrup, and lots of lemon. And that's a really good bee's knees. That's a really good bee's knees.
This is the gin basil smash. Wow, that's delicious.
Is it?
Oh yeah, that could be dangerous.
We also took some time to see these incredible models of not only the Queen Mary, but other ships from the same time period. I'm telling you, my friends, I could spend all kinds of time here. The place is just fascinating. It's the closest I think you can get to feeling what life was like back then, and I just love it here. There's so much to see, you really need a couple of days, and you'd need a month to talk about the history and all that's happened on this ship. But today, we are here to talk about ghosts. The Queen Mary is said to be one of the most haunted places on Earth, and that comes as no surprise. Many souls have passed through this vessel, and yes, there have been deaths on board. There has also been a tragedy. In October 1942, a British anti-aircraft cruiser collided with the Queen Mary. 236 British seamen lost their lives, and some say the ghosts of the dead military men haunt the ship. Some people report seeing men in World War II style uniforms thinking they're part of some type of event happening here on the ship. But when they blink or turn around, the soldier disappears. There have been 49 reported deaths on the ship since she took her maiden voyage. People have died of heart attacks. They've died in their sleep. They have choked to death. They have fallen. In 1989, 2 employees were sent to clean the Maritania room to prepare it for a VIP reception. When they entered the room, they saw what they thought was a hotel guest sitting silently on a chair smack in the middle of the dance floor. A third woman came in to assist the other 2 and asked the women why the guest was staring at them. She got a bit annoyed and asked the guest to please move so they could continue cleaning. The guest did not flinch and continued to stare directly at the women, which frightened them. As they got on their radios to call security, they watched as the guest faded into air right in front of them. All 3 women claimed to have seen this exact same thing. You know, I'm a skeptic, but I'm also not a fan of telling other people what they saw. The Mayfair room was once the ship's beauty salon, and it's now used as office space. In 2001, an accountant went into work early in the morning, around 5:30 a.m., and immediately felt something was off. She began to work, but noticed it was very cold in the room, and then she felt something brush up against her back, but no one was there. Moments later, the woman saw a transparent figure in white walk across her office and right through the door. The woman claims she is not a believer in ghosts and is still shaken by what she saw. The first-class swimming pool, one of the most luxurious spots on the ship, with a lighted fountain and mother-of-pearl ceiling, is now closed and out of service, which I think is kind of a shame. People have reported seeing all kinds of different ghosts near the pool. There is a young woman dressed to play tennis who is seen going up and down the stairs. There's a woman in a vintage-style wedding gown who stands in the corner. And there is a little boy in a blue suit, along with a little girl in a blue and white dress. One second they are there, The next, they are gone. In 1966, the routine order was given to close the watertight doors in the engine and boiler rooms. An 18-year-old crew member was somehow crushed by hatch number 13. Others worked to free him, and he was pulled from the hatch, but it was too late. He died there, and his ghost is said to roam the area and is often accompanied by the sound of whistling. The beautiful and historic piano I showed you earlier, it is said to be in one of the most haunted areas of the ship, or perhaps the piano itself is haunted. It is said that a woman in a long white dress can often be seen standing in the corner near the piano. She wanders through the lobby and into the small bar area, and then she vanishes into thin air. But this right here might be the most haunted spot on the Queen Mary. All right, so the most haunted room is supposed to be
Room 340 on the B deck.
340 on the B deck. So here's 336 and 338, but they've taken the numbers off, or someone has stolen them. So this is supposed to be the most haunted room on the ship. Stateroom B340 was a problem even before the Queen Mary opened as a hotel. In 1948, a third-class passenger named Walter J. Adamson died in the room. The details of his death have been lost to time, but ever since his passing, people have reported strange events in room B340. In 1966, a woman who was staying in the room reported she was awakened when the bed covers were pulled off her suddenly, and she saw a man standing at the foot of her bed. As she struggled to get to her feet, screaming, intending to call for help, the man vanished in front of her eyes. In the years since, guests report someone knocking on the door in the middle of the night, and the lights in the room and bathroom turning on and off on their own. It got so bad that for years, room B340 was closed and not available to reserve, but the ship's owners have since decided to reopen the room and allow adventurous guests to stay in it. Of all the places I have been, of all the incredible and historic locations we have traveled to, the Queen Mary stands out. I don't know that I have ever been to a place where you feel the history like you do on the Queen Mary. The air feels a little thick here, like it's more crowded than it appears to be. There's a smell as well, not an unpleasant one. I don't know, it smells old. It smells of the ocean, and it smells very much like you're not alone, even when you are. I can't really explain it very well. Many people had some of the best nights of their lives on this ship, and many had some of the most important here, the days and nights spent journeying to a new life in a new world. It is simply a magnificent structure, and there is no need to wonder why so many who spent time here in life have decided to spend time here in death. Now, as we always do on this playlist, we eat in our haunted location. This is Dining with Death. We had lunch here at the Chelsea Chowder House and Bar. We started out with the clam chowder, which was really good, and then we got talking about California cuisine. Don't you think, Jace?
Yeah, 100%, for sure. I mean, just look at the base of the soup. It's not bright white, like, you see it's more clear,
like heavy cream based.
There's not as much flour in here, and it's very hearty. There's tons of seafood in it, which is awesome.
And I just feel like everything on the West Coast is just a little lighter.
It's definitely geared towards a lighter diet.
And more lightly seasoned. Sometimes I feel like it's not seasoned enough.
Yeah, like I definitely put a little salt and pepper in my soup, for sure.
Yeah.
And definitely put some pepper on the salad.
Yeah. Sometimes it does feel like the seasoning is a bit light in California. I think that's because a lot of people here are into health and fitness, and they like things to be really fresh and bright and light, and that's great. But you can still season fresh and bright food. Of course, that doesn't apply to all places, and it didn't apply here. The food was good. We had the shrimp cocktail. It was great, really good cocktail sauce, and really fresh, firm, delicious shrimp. Shrimp cocktail is one of my absolute favorite appetizers, especially when I'm by the ocean. We split a Caesar salad with grilled chicken, and it was good as well. They had great big Parmesan shavings on it, and the croutons were homemade, especially good. Now, I'm not a big fan of sticking a camera in people's faces when they're working, so I don't have any footage of this, but we got talking with our server, and he told us that he has been working in this exact restaurant for 24 years. That is an anomaly. Those of you who have spent time in the restaurant industry know servers come and go every day. So it says a lot about the owners of the ship and the ship itself that someone would work here for that long, and I think he's one of many. There is no place on earth like the Queen Mary. If you ever have the chance to walk through her doors and down her corridors, make sure you take that chance. And say hello to the former guests for me, if you happen to run into one.
Thank you for joining me today on Dining with Death, Dining with the Deceased. Hit the like button if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and you can always join my Patreon. We have a big goal there, and it's this. We would like to donate money from our community to police departments that have cold case DNA in storage that has never been tested. There are thousands of sexual assault kits sitting in refrigeration that have never been tested, and we would like to pick a case, test that kit, and get that perpetrator's DNA in the system. For a few dollars a month, you can help us reach that goal. I sure appreciate you spending a little bit of your day with me. Thank you so much for the support. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other, and I will see you next time on Dining with Death. Bye.